Good evening. You're listening to the Xtreme Movie Show. Tonight's episode, Xtreme TV, Season 1, Episode 17 of Kolchak, The Night Stalker. Gentlemen, there are certain episodes that we discuss with Kolchak that we've been meh or not good, even though we love Darren McGavin and his performance, and we really are interested in the character of Kolchak. We all have our pluses and minuses with the show, but I think one thing we've all agreed on is that there's been some hit and misses in this one-season show. This one is an interesting episode to me because it's got a lot of interesting elements, and I'm overusing the word interesting already. So I don't know if it's a good episode, but I found it like watching a car wreck. I know it's probably something disastrous, but I can't take my eyes off it. And it was done different because for the Chips people from the 70s, you got a pre-Ponch here, and he's a ladies' man. He's the rich snob that seems like he has everything. He has a posse of beautiful women running around with him, and he's really enjoying it. You've got this episode taking place inside a hotel mostly. You've got a mummy. You've got Inca assassins maybe that are wearing these weird bird feather outfits, which I almost laughed at, but then thought were a little sinister. You got the mummy coming to life with the big sword at the end with Kolchak tumbling down the Great Western Forum hotel in Chicago. I don't know if this is a good episode, and I don't know if I liked it, but a part of me feels like I've been programmed to say it's kind of neat. And so I feel guilty saying that, which means I guess I kind of liked it a little bit. What were your thoughts?
No, I have to agree. It is kind of neat. The one thing I will say about this episode is that this is the best that Kolchak has explained to Vincenzo a situation, and to where it can be logically explained to people. That was the hard part of this, when Vincenzo still writes him off. There were ways to explain this without diving into the supernatural, and he says himself, well, family psychosis is a thing, but even with something loose like that, they had a way to publish this story. Vincenzo still says no.
Yeah, no, I know. RDV, what was your take on this episode?
This was I didn't really care for this episode. It just felt like, we're gonna get Eric Estrada. He's hot right now. We're gonna get him jump on, and then maybe we'll make a good episode. And I just felt kind of lackluster. The name's called Legacy of Terror, but it wasn't terror. It was terrible.
Well, two things popped out, and it both has to do with sexuality a little bit. One, Ponch looked fantastic, and he's a young guy. He's not the biggest guy in this world, and he's Mexican, obviously. So Mexico in film and TV was maybe highly represented a lot. You had Ricardo Montalban, I believe, is Mexican, and Fantasy Island, I think, was getting ready to get on at this time. But he'd been around since, I think, the 50s and musicals and whatnot, and he's a very viral man too. So this episode really focused on this whole idea of him walking around with three beautiful ladies, his secretary, his PR lady, and somebody else too. And yeah, I call it a pimp suit because it's like a 70s kind of thing. He's not a pimp, but immediately you're drawn into this episode because while they're at a hotel and they're trying to drum up some PR stuff, what I liked about the setup of this episode is that you really had Vincenzo kind of outside of his normal confines. And we've talked about before, Kolchak shines when he's not in the office and not doing the same old where they change things up. We talked about last week's fantastic episode, from the music to the fact that it took place at the fake Illinois Institute of Technology, wherever it was. And this one here, again, majority of it's in this hotel that we get constant shots of the lobby from the outside going in. So I thought that was really great. But here's another thing that I think is a plus. This is the only time that Ron seemed tolerable and not a complete waste. And he got more screen time than anything. So it's not really a Ron episode, but for some reason he didn't rub me the wrong way like he always does is that character. But the biggest thing in this episode that seems pretty blatant now in 2021 is, we talked about before, a lot of beautiful women were guest stars. We've talked about the strength of the show as far as having guest stars and occasionally some decent writing. Here, though, one of the main ladies that we meet in the lobby early on with Kolchak, this very beautiful woman that's in the military, who's going to be the first Marine approved for combat. And you think now, this is again 45 years ago, standards have been changed, things are different in terms of our culture. But we've talked about before how Kolchak has a lot of women in roles that seem to be cutting edge for their time because they're either elite members of society. It's not just because they're beautiful. They had some function in a Kolchak episode. So some may argue that's feminism done the right way because, hey, we're actually showcasing women, not just for their looks or whatever, but ones that have talent. And then here we're going, okay, they even kind of make that a part of the plot here where the lady's PR person, who also is in the military, says, well, it's nice that you guys let her finally finish a thought, kind of ha 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 at Archie early on. But for TV back then, it was kind of cutting edge. So I don't know if this is supposed to be a sexual episode in that sense, but it totally revolved around women. And that's what made it kind of disjarring to me because I thought it was done well. But then you get the whole backstory of the fact that the Estrada character was basically promised a year's worth of unearthly delights, which he took in the form of women and being a member of the hotel and stuff like that, to live like a king like no other, as long as he promised them a sacrifice at the end, which turned out he didn't want to. And then we have a bit of a schmoz ending. But that being said, it was, the setup was there. It was interesting, and I guess maybe you could sway me to either side. But what else about this episode to you guys really stood out that's worth commenting on?
I actually did have something that I thought of. I have to disagree with Venkman. I don't think it's a terrible episode. Oh, I know now. This is from what you said about the hotel. Yes, but actually, one of my favorite things is whenever they go to the stadium. This is the best looking episode of Kolchak we've had.
Just the Great Western Forum in L.A., where the Los Angeles Lakers used to play, and the owner Jack Kent Cooke. This is right after Wilt Chamberlain. He ended up watching them, and the Lakers were, once we got into the 80s, were a really, really big deal. The Celtics dynasty in them is the best in sports, probably in all of sports, really. But he also was an owner of the Redskins, which when he died, didn't leave the team to his son, and it went to a lawsuit. Now the current owner, O'Neal Dana Snyder's a part of it. I have to get that ran off my chest. But yes, it was known as the Great Western Forum because it's a very decadent looking stadium at the time with fountains and very Roman looking stuff. You're absolutely right to your point, and I agree totally. Now I'll shut up. It was a great looking episode. Sorry.
Yeah. It just from every shot felt far better, even whenever he was in the freaking basement. Because that's where he finds the whole to do. I found it quite funny when he said there's a point where he's trying to go after one of the calls on the police radio, and he gets knocked out by the Incan dressed up in his full garb, and he says that he's hit by a big red and yellow chicken, and then he's like, I don't know. But then they show the costume in the basement. It really does kind of look like a big red and yellow chicken.
Yeah, RDV, I was going to ask you because when I saw the first murder take place, and of course they do the psycho thing where you don't see the actual murder, but you see the chicken costume outfit. Did that work for you or not? Because I thought the costumes were terrific, but I almost laughed because it didn't seem like it was in a setting that seemed where I could believe it. Does that make sense?
I understand what you're saying, and I said the whole entire feel of this felt dumb. I just couldn't get into it. Like I said, compared to all the other episodes, this is right up there with the monkey.
Yeah,
but it's a giant chicken.
Yeah, it's hard. Like if you had taken Kolchak maybe away and he was on a reservation investigating a murder or something.
The whole plot is they have to kill 5 people, get 5 hearts, and they have to be from one's from a Green Beret, one's from an Air Force pilot, other one's from the
bunch of alpha studs.
The football player, and that's why the football stadium or where they're at because the football player.
Yeah,
I mean, and they really wanted to show off Eric Estrada. Because he's the pretty boy, that's what he is. He's the guest, the big guest star on this. Yep. And like I said, I feel like they couldn't figure out what to do, so they're like, well, you look kind of like you're Native American, whatever. We're gonna do this. I mean, I don't tell you it's an insult to him, but it just felt like it was kind of like lazy idea. They could have done something else, but
well, what's it mean? Let me ask you this, because you're right about Eric Estrada, and I pointed out that he's physically attractive. He was on there bare-chested a lot, which, again, 45 years ago, standards are different now than they are on regular TV. But I didn't think he was ever a great actor, but that doesn't mean you have to be good or be successful. It doesn't mean that at all. But to you, did it seem like he was just high every single time he was talking and delivering his lines?
Yeah, like I said, it's like
about it. It was
like
weird.
the whole thing is for him. They kept showing. They want to show him up, his chest, and him just they were using him as like you'd have like as a showpiece, pretty much throughout the whole.
He was a showpiece. That was the plot.
I understand that, so they built it all around him, the guest star. I guess and I just felt like they just were moving along at a snail's pace, and then finally get the end. It just the Mummy
was slow. It was a different pacing. I would agree with you on that.
And then the Mummy looks like it's like he's just a mutant from beneath the Planet of the Apes.
Well, I mean, he's been around for quite a few years.
And the thing, he only got 4 out of 5 hearts. So it's like he didn't get to complete the ritual. So like what Kolchak said is like, is he still gonna come back in 52 years and try again, or is he gonna just stay dead? Yeah. Or is he partially still alive? Kind of.
Yeah. Kolchak did say there at the end when Estrada was getting ready to sacrifice himself, Kolchak just made it was kind of weird. It was good, but it was so good it was bad because Kolchak just made says a line something along the lines of, well, yeah, do you really think they're going to hold up their end of the bargain? And so when he goes to drive the knife through his heart, Estrada's like, nope, I'm getting out of here, and he takes off. It's like, yeah, that kind of makes sense. It really, I think, magnified the stupidity of what we were saying when I was almost believing it too. That's my tug of war with this episode.
Well, no. The line that I remember is he looks up at him and says, "You don't have to be a box boy," which is what he was saying. The guy was a loser, pretty much, but because of his ancestry, they gave him a year of whatever he wanted. He got to live like a king, and he was told his life is worthless. So what's one great year? So having one great year, that'll do it. And Kolchak is there convincing him that no, there's more. You don't have to have this horrible life. If you live today, you can do whatever you want, but not if you give yourself up to this. And so when he runs away, the Incan's mad and going after him, but he collapses, and that's it. He's just taken to a museum afterwards. So the question is, will he return? Kolchak managed to stop them from getting the 5th heart. He saved the day. He really did.
It feels like this whole episode wanted to steal my heart because it was heartless and cold.
I gotta disagree.
Well, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Kolchak, season 1, episode 17. In the batch of horrible or bad Kolchak episodes, this might be at the top of the list, meaning could be passable. I hate being that guy in the middle and say it was interesting without saying it was good or it's bad, but there's definitely been worse. Nothing offended me in here, and I wasn't upset with it, but it was different. And so for some of you that may be good, some of you may not be, but it's watchable. I will say that it's a little bit of a slower paced episode. I would agree with RDV on that.
I would say the only thing good about this is the 3 women that were surrounding Eric Estrada. Other than that,
it made me think of a vampire.
Yeah. I just felt like I was watching Dracula. That's what that was with the Native Americans.
Yeah, but it was nice to have the Native American Inca sacrifice angle being brought up rather than something else there too. So could they have dressed it better? I don't know. They had a travel agent scene that kind of fell flat, but at least they told the major.
I will point out though that there are a lot of people who like this, and a lot of people who don't like this. The episode throughout there for my research on here. So I'm not the only one who did not like it. There's also people who are like Pixel who did like it. So it's up to you as the viewer. People who listen to this, go watch it and let us know what you think of it.
Yeah. There you go, guys. Xtreme TV, as we're finishing up our last couple of episodes of Kolchak here. It's definitely been a lot of fun. We definitely had some interesting episodes. Some stuff I remember and don't. I'm glad we're getting a chance to watch this. We got RDV and Professor Pixel. Pixel, if you want to quickly mention any final thoughts before we go.
No, I've said all that I've meant, so I'm good.
All right.
I'd say go watch any episode of Chips than this.
That's a disagree, Cold. But you'll at least remember Ponch and John and the theme if you've watched it. Yeah. All right, there you go, ladies and gentlemen. Pre-Ponch Pimp Suit John in here with Incas and blood stuff. So it sounds more exciting than it probably is by watching. But hey, that's why we talk about it. There you go. Have a good night, everybody. And as always, stay extreme.